Chairwoman.
Thank you very much, Senator Klobuchar, and then our cleanup hitter, Senator Bozeman.
Always
Klobuchar.
patient, always patient. Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you, Senator Bozeman, and thank you very much for your work, Director. So, Chairman, the CFTC, we know, has very important work right now. I think since we last talked, digital asset market has grown tremendously. The market capitalization of digital assets has recovered to over $2 trillion, doubling from its recent low point. Bitcoin alone recently hit a record high of over 73,000. Despite this, there isn't really, you tell me, you believe you need more statutory authority, correct?
Senator, yes.
Okay.
Big gap.
And so that's why we're having this hearing, which I appreciate, that Congress must work in a bipartisan way to reinforce the CFTC's authority and ensure it has the necessary resources to protect consumers and maintain market stability. That includes considering legislation to regulate digital assets, protecting consumers and market participants while fostering innovation and ensuring a level regulatory playing field. That's how I think about it. I know that some of this has been asked. I was at a hearing. We have a federal judge nominee in Minnesota, and you don't really want to leave the Senate Judiciary Committee alone on its own when you have a nominee, so that's why I'm a little late here. You have previously discussed how the CFTC has a rigorous and deep disclosure regime for commodity market participants, including what they must share with investors, that differs from securities disclosures. It's also important to ensure consumers have sufficient disclosures about the underlying assets in addition to disclosures from market participants. Is that right?
Correct.
And in other words, aren't disclosures about these assets as important as those about the entities trading them?
Correct.
Okay, good. AI is set to become one of the most significant technological advances of our time. I think it was David Brooks who said he has trouble writing about it because he doesn't know if it's going to lead us to heaven or hell. And a lot of that is in our hands. It's great potential for innovation, but we have to put some rules in place, something that a group of senators have been working on for months. We are already seeing the risks of AI in financial markets. In January, the CFTC issued an advisory warning against the risk of AI-driven crypto scams. Can you talk about the kinds of fraudulent activity you've seen with the use of AI in digital asset markets?
Thanks, Senator. It's an extremely important issue, and quickly putting aside the AI customer advisory, we've done a lot of work ourselves on soliciting comment from the industry around how AI is being used in the market, and we're taking and reviewing those comments now to ensure that we potentially consider a rule or advisory or guidance ourselves. With respect to your question, what we've observed is really, it's akin to a search engine where artificial intelligence is able to essentially track vulnerable investors, individuals across the country, and where they put their resources, how they invest their money, where they look on the internet, and are able to use artificial intelligence to essentially capture them at a vulnerable time. There's something called romance scams, which you may be familiar with, but this is a really very sad scam that's been going on for a number of years. I think the FBI noted just last year in 2023, there was over $3 billion of romance scams. And this really is preying on the most vulnerable Americans
Yes.
who are looking for partnership and friendship and essentially stealing their life savings. So we are very focused on that. We're working with our federal partners, but a lot of it, to your question, is driven by artificial intelligence and seeing where users are located, who has money, where they're banking, and then ultimately what their patterns are socially so that they can ultimately be taken advantage of. So we're doing our best to prevent that.
Very good. Crypto operates in two areas, correct? On-chain, decentralized users, and off-chain, centralized institutions. And most of the proposed legislation focuses on centralized platforms, not on-chain. Are on-chain activities and DeFi harder to regulate? And do you have any recs for how we should approach DeFi
Senator,
oversight?
thanks. It's a really important question, and I'm going to use an example of what we're observing. It's still very early days, but a lot of more sophisticated large financial institutions are looking at on-chain transactions or on-chain technology as a means for payment processes and settlement. So settlement, you can imagine in a financial market, is extremely important, and a lot of financial institutions are looking at blockchain and on-chain transactions as a means to make settlement or payment processes more efficient. So we are working with the industry, with other partners, and seeing how and in what way we intersect with that. There's definitely a regulatory nexus. But is it more difficult? It's certainly not centralized. The whole point of blockchain is to be decentralized. It raises very interesting policy and legal questions about what do we want to do from an elected legal perspective, but also from a regulatory perspective to properly regulate it, but not over-regulate it, because there could be potential innovations and efficiencies developed from it.
Well, thank you. If I've learned anything around here, it's don't use the ranking member's time. So I'll maybe submit another question or two on record, but I'm very glad that the chairman and ranking are working on legislation on this. I think it's time to move, and I really, really appreciate you appearing before us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And last and certainly not
You're
least,
always
Senator
welcome.
Bozeman.
Always welcome to use our time.